All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience as we wait for folks to trickle in. I think we'll go ahead and get started as we're starting to see the room fill up a bit more. So I just want to welcome you all, wish you a good evening, and thank you so much for joining us again. This is our third in our series of monthly evening community work groups. And if this is your first time joining us, hello, it's great to meet you. My name is Diane Sanchez, and I'm the lead outreach staff over the funding plan for clean transportation incentives. And I'm joined today by our awesome funding plan team, who you will be meeting today and discussing with as well. So before we get started, as usual, we're going to go through a few meeting logistics. First, this meeting is being recorded, so you'll be able to check out a copy of that recording as well as an attendee list on our meetings and workshops webpage in approximately 2 weeks. The materials for today's work groups, like the agenda and the slides, are also available on our webpage, and I will drop a link in our chat in just 1 second here. All right, so that's where you can get the meeting materials. Next, today we'll be using Zoom's raised hand feature to facilitate comments and questions. However, if there are Zoom disruptions for any reason, especially any malicious intent, unfortunately, we would have to immediately end today's meeting and send out another notice to reschedule. Finally, we're unable to allow anonymous meeting participants for security reasons, so please make sure that your name is clear on the Zoom platform. And if you've called in, we'll adjust your phone number and call you based on the last 4 digits of your number when you raise your hand. So with that, let's take a look at today's agenda. All right, so our first big topic we'll discuss today is clean mobility equity and light duty vehicle investments. Then, after a short break, we'll provide updates on our HVIP, ISEF, and CORE heavy-duty investment programs. And after that, we'll open it up for an open discussion with some open-ended questions on the funding plan, and we'll wrap up at 7 p.m. sharp. All right, so for today's meeting, we are asking that CARB staff and attendees follow a set of meeting agreements. So the first agreement is that we will be respectful. So let's make sure that we're being kind to each other and we're continuing to create a space where everyone feels comfortable in sharing their opinions and experiences. Second is take space and make space. So if you're usually quiet during these type of meetings, challenge yourself to take some more space here. And if you usually talk a lot, let's be mindful and leave some room for the quieter voices. Next is listen to understand. So we'll make sure that we're all practicing actively listening to each other. And finally, and most importantly, we want to develop solutions with equity in mind. So equity, again, is that idea that not everyone starts from the same place and that some folks might have unique advantages and barriers. So we want to recognize those barriers that exist in some communities in order to tailor solutions to their unique challenges. We're joined today from folks all over California, and each person's community is unique in their barriers and advantages. Finally, the focus for these meetings are on overcoming barriers that community members face as we transition to cleaner transportation in our state. So please keep this in mind and allow for community voices to be uplifted in our space today. So with those agreements in mind, let's go to the next slide. All right, so here's a refresher on our community meetings and why we're here tonight. So typically, the annual funding plan development process results in many daytime public workshops on several of our incentive projects. But we recognize that our community members across the state have those unique barriers to attending these meetings compared to the folks in industry, government, or non-governmental organizations. So this year, CARB has been holding these monthly community evening meetings to give community members an accessible way to engage with us. The topics that we cover during these meetings will cover the same topics discussed during the daytime funding plan work groups, but at a more high level and in a more concise format. Overall, the goals of these meetings include holding a space for community voices and their priorities to be heard, brainstorming for their clean transportation needs, highlighting the most important funding plan information for community members, and having that continuous communication between staff and community. We want everyone to feel welcome to attend any and all of the funding plan workshops. However, these community evening meetings are designed so that no interested parties feel the need to attend both. And that said, we are happy to further dive into slides from any other workshops if you do have specific questions on those. Next slide, please. All right, so the funding plan team does want to ensure that we're providing a wide variety of ways that community members can engage with us throughout this ongoing development process. One way to engage with us is participating in these community evening meetings. However, we understand that not everyone feels comfortable in talking in these type of forums. So we also developed a community survey, which is linked in the slides in a scannable QR code on the screen. And I'm also going to drop it here in the chat for you to take a look at. So we have an open door policy when it comes to meeting with staff. So we're currently scheduling meetings with community members who have been interested, EJ groups and community groups who've wanted to meet with us one-on-one. So I want to make sure that we highlight that. And if you are interested in that, there is one final question in the community survey where you can request a one-on-one meeting with us. So please make sure to take a look at that. And additionally, another way to engage with us is to comment on our draft funding plan, which will be released later this month. So now I'll open it up to any questions before we kick it off and start talking about our first, topic. So I'll hand it to Dorji to handle any questions.
Hello, everyone. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please use the webinar feature to raise your hand. For those using Zoom online, please click on the raise hand option on the Zoom navigation bar under the Participants tab. For those using Zoom on a mobile application, please click on the raise hand option in the More tab. For those who are participating by telephone, please be sure to press #2 and we will call on you accordingly. Once your line is open, you can begin to speak. Please remember to state your name and affiliation first before providing a comment or asking a question. Kristen Kessler, you are being unmuted.
Thank you. I'm just a concerned citizen, and I have a question about the CORE program, which I think is a wonderful program. Thank you so much. I was wondering if you guys are reaching out to individual landscaping companies in the state to tell them about the program, or are you just relying on the outreach that's on the website? Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Would that go to Eric?
That is. Do you want me to take questions now, or do you want to wait until I give my presentation?
Yeah,
I can do it. I can do it either way. I can say we are reaching out. We do have a website. We do have a contractor that's helping us reach out. We meet with the general public all the time about if they have equipment or they have questions about different products. So we're happy to meet with anybody. If you have more ideas or you have avenues that you think that we should be reaching out to that we're not, I'm totally happy to follow up with them if we can get some direction. If you see us lacking somewhere or you're not seeing enough outreach somewhere, please reach out to us. I'm happy to add companies, businesses, venues to our outreach.
Thanks, Eric. And Kristen, we do have a section later in the presentation that will go into a little bit more depth about the CORE program as well as HVIP and ISEF. So stay tuned and you'll also hear some more information later on today.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, not seeing any more hands. So I think we can go on to our first topic. Next slide, please. All right, so now we'll discuss clean mobility equity and light duty vehicle investments. So I'll welcome Graciela to the floor.
Thanks, Diane. So let's discuss staff's proposed allocations for the 2023-24 fiscal year. So this slide shows staff proposed allocations. I will note that this year's budget carved out 80 million total for statewide vehicle purchase incentives and about 60 million for our sustainable community-based transportation equity projects for a total of 140 million. As you can see on the slide, staff are proposing anywhere from 28 to 30 million each for the statewide Clean Cars for All and financing assistance programs, 18 to 20 million for the California e-bike project, up to 5 million for Access Clean California, and up to 2 million for the California Integrated Travel Project, or CAL-ITP, 40 to 50 million between the CMO, STEP, and CMIS programs, and 10 to 20 million for the planning and capacity building projects. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Raquel Cardenas for our next topic to provide an update on our vehicle affordability analysis.
Great. Thank you so much, Grace. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit, and I'm going to provide a summary of the updated vehicle affordability analysis, which we will include in this year's funding plan. So before I get into the key takeaways, I did want to provide some background information on this analysis. So last year was the first time we did this analysis, where we looked at what the costs were to purchase and maintain a new or used zero emission vehicle, and then determine what incentive level really helps provide a significant number of vehicle choice options for lower income consumers. So the analysis itself takes into account various inputs such as the vehicle costs, household income, interest rates for loans, and insurance costs, to name a few, as well as the available CARB incentives like financing assistance and Clean Cars for All. So with that in mind, here are some of the key takeaways from the updated analysis. In terms of new zero emission vehicles, CARB's cash incentives and 8% interest rate loan reduction, or 8% interest rate loan do reduce the cost of a new zero emission vehicle, but they do not enable affordable choices in the new vehicle space for lower income households, given the parameters of the analysis. When factoring in the full federal tax credit for those who are eligible, two options are available, being the Chevy Bolt EV and the Chevy Bolt E. Things are different when looking at the used zero emission vehicle market. There are many affordable used small zero emission vehicle options without CARB incentives, about 39 options, given the parameters of this analysis. When factoring in the Clean Cars for All incentive, the 8% loan from financing assistance, and the upcoming used EV federal tax credit, this nearly quadruples the number of affordable options, about 147 options. So in summary, while these results suggest that there are a limited number of new vehicle affordable options for lower income households, even when including incentives, we do continue to see an increase in demand for CARB incentive programs focused on lower income consumers. So the analysis is based on a set number of factors, and we fully recognize that that every person's financial situation is different. With the expansion of the statewide Clean Cars for All and financing assistance program, CARB staff will continue to analyze the real world data from these programs to inform future updates of this analysis so that it reflects what we're actually seeing in our program. I'll now hand it off to my colleague, Erin Hilliard, to discuss zero emission motorcycle eligibility for Clean Cars for All and financing assistance.
Thank you, Raquel. Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Hilliard. I'm the manager of the Clean Cars for All program. I'm here to help answer any questions that may come up on zero emission motorcycle eligibility. Next slide, please. As part of the fiscal year 23-24 funding plan, currently zero emission motorcycles, or ZEMs, are only eligible through CVRP, as CVRP is not expecting any additional funding In order to promote additional zero-emission transportation options, CARB staff is considering the addition of zero-emission motorcycles, or ZEMs, in the Clean Cars for All program and the Financing Assistance program. ZEMs are different from e-bikes in that they are more powerful, can be freeway capable, and must be registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles. There are currently dozens of models of ZEMs, and they are available in several different styles, from small moped-style scooters to full-size motorcycles. Prices vary widely and range from $2,000 to $20,000, and they have ranges of between 30 and 200 miles. ZEM functionality presents a viable option for incentive program participants who are looking for a zero-emission option and don't need a passenger vehicle. Staff will continue to analyze ZEMs and incorporate stakeholder and community feedback to determine which incentive programs may be the best fit, as well as the appropriate funding amounts. As staff continues to analyze this potential program change, we'd like to take this opportunity to gather initial thoughts, concerns, or questions regarding adding ZEMs to financing assistance and CC4A. I'll now hand it off to Nick Nambirch to discuss Access Clean California. Nick.
Good evening, everybody. Next slide, please. All right, so CARB staff is considering an allocation of up to $5 million for Access Clean California to continue scaling up implementation of the project, expanding its network of outreach partners and filling outreach gaps through targeted outreach in priority communities throughout the state. These efforts will continue to ensure CARB is raising awareness and providing effective outreach in priority communities through trusted outreach partners with a particular emphasis on targeting and increasing participation through the project's benefits finder tool from communities who face the greatest barriers and are underrepresented in participation data to date. One of the main priorities with this proposed funding will be to expand our outreach partner network by partnering with community-based and similar grassroots level organizations representing traditionally underserved communities and, where necessary, providing capacity building as well. Through its outreach partner network and supporting resources, Access Clean California is also uniquely positioned to support and complement the outreach model proposed in the recently awarded statewide financing assistance and Clean Cars for All statewide program as it launches in the upcoming fiscal year. The draft allocation would also be used to continue leveraging Access Clean California to improve community engagement and facilitate community input and feedback on CARB's incentive programs and regulations. Finally, since we've already had 4 fiscal years of funding allocated to this project, the draft funding allocation would need to be awarded via competitive solicitation. In order to avoid any funding gaps for the project, we are aiming to release the solicitation as soon as possible after the funding plan is approved by our board later this year. So we're hopefully aiming for a release of the solicitation by January 2024. Access Clean California is a key component of coordinated outreach strategy for CARB for our incentive programs, but we also want to explore what additional outreach investments are needed. One thing that we've consistently heard is a need for a flexible mechanism to fund integrated community level outreach. In other words, a way to get funding to community-based organizations and community leaders to conduct outreach, not just for one program, but across all the relevant incentive programs. Access Clean California, as I just talked about, provides one pathway to this end, but we want to hear about what are some other pathways for getting funding to community groups. This would likely need to include providing capacity building as well, where necessary. To successfully do this, though, there are some important constraints and limitations that we face as a state agency in getting grants to community groups. These constraints include how should CARB identify and prioritize communities? There are a lot of communities and even more groups and leaders representing them who need this type of funding. So, one thing we'd like to hear feedback on is what criteria CARB should use to prioritize specific communities for outreach. Also, how should we determine what community groups to partner with? how do we know what trusted community-based organizations are in these communities? Who should we work with, and who could really use this funding to conduct outreach? Also, another constraint is CARB's ability to partner with more community to partner with more communities relies on administrators, third-party administrators, as they're able to provide the administrative capacity that CARB doesn't have to manage grants with each of the many community groups that need this funding. Another constraint is that the state has restrictions when it comes to providing money up front to organizations, which is clearly a big concern when working with small organizations that lack capital to work on a reimbursement basis. So I think it's important to acknowledge those constraints, and keeping those in mind. We'd like to hear what folks on this call have in mind when it comes to what types of outreach investments are needed. And so I think at this point, I don't know, are we opening up for questions now, or are we going to move on and do questions later? Okay, yeah, so
let's pass it on to Violet, and then I'll
okay.
remind folks of the questions you posed when we open it up after Violet's.
Sure, I can repeat those questions too, but at that point, I'll pass it over to Violet Martin, who will cover the proposed process changes for sustainable community-based transportation equity projects. Violet?
Thanks, Nick. Good evening, everyone. My name is Violet Martin, and tonight I'll talk about sustainable community-based transportation equity projects. We also call this planning, capacity building, and clean mobility funding. So the budget includes $60 million for these projects, and with this, we suggest $40 to $50 million go to clean mobility projects and $10 to $20 million go to planning projects. So I'll describe each more in a bit more detail next. CARB has 3 clean mobility programs, including Clean Mobility Options Voucher Pilot, Clean Mobility in Schools, and the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project, or STEP. These programs fund many clean mobility projects. Examples include public transit, car share, bike share, electric school buses, sidewalks, bike paths for the school community, as well as priority populations more generally. So each program is managed separately. Each also has its own application and grant process, but we are trying to make it less complex. And with that, on July 24th, we released a joint request for applications for planning, CMIS and STEP, or Clean Mobility in Schools and STEP. With this year's $40 to $50 million for clean mobility programs, we want to keep making it easier for communities to apply and get their projects funded. This means working on combining the application, timeline, and grant process by adding clean mobility options. CARB would select the projects through one request for applications. We may also continue a 2-step application with the first step requiring less upfront effort to apply. And the purpose and goals for each program would not be changed. So each program would get a portion of the $40 to $50 million. And we also suggest adding a statewide mobility projects administrator. CARB would score and select the projects. The administrator would then manage all the mobility projects. And together, CARB and the administrator would help project teams implement their projects. Next slide, please. Thank you. CARB now funds community planning capacity building separately from mobility. Some example projects include clean transportation planning, outreach, workforce training and development, and technical assistance. We just opened a solicitation for a statewide planning administrator to manage planning efforts. The administrator will also help project teams implement their projects. CARB will select the planning projects from the request for applications that I mentioned in the previous slide, which was released in July. And what we propose is to keep doing this with the 10 to 20 million from this year's budget. Also, we want to align the timeline and application with mobility projects. So this sets up a single application approach for applicants to apply for either planning or mobility projects. So that captures those the category of sustainable community-based transportation equity projects. Thank you. And I think at this point, we're going to open it up to questions and comments.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Violet. Also, thank you so much to Graciela, Raquel, Aaron, and Nick for your great presentations. We are going to open it up now for questions, so I'll hand it off to Dorje. And Nick, if you could post the questions that you had earlier for the group in the chat, that would be great. And then we can repeat it once Dorje kind of handles the questions.
Sure, I'll do that right now.
Thank you. Dorje, it's all you.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick reminder, please click on the raise hand option to sort of participate in the comments and questions part of the presentation. And that is under the Zoom navigation bar for those using Zoom online, or if it's a mobile application, that is in the More tab. Also, if you want to participate via phone, make sure to press #2 and we will call on you accordingly. Before you speak, make sure to clearly state your name and affiliation. And Jeanette Dietz-Kami, you are being unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Janet Dietz-Kami, and I am a Fresno citizen, and I have asthma. And my interest in a lot of these meetings is the every way we can to reduce air quality issues causing us ill health. Regarding the EVs, one of the communities that I am concerned about are those people living in apartments. And I have brought this up in many meetings, and it just seems to confound people as to how apartment residents are going to be able to charge their electric vehicles. Sanger has charging stations that are powered by solar panels. And I'm wondering if that could be a method for allowing people living in apartments to have some means of charging their vehicles. There are so many needs and so many ways that the electric vehicles can improve our air. But one of the things I've been championing from the beginning is school buses. I don't know how many of you have stood there where the buses are running, the engines are running, children are boarding the buses, and the exposure to diesel fumes is overwhelming. So I am hoping that we can get a good start on electric school buses for our children. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet, for your comments. Yeah, I just wanted to add, so we, predominantly the California Energy Commission funds the infrastructure piece of the puzzle, whereas CARB funds the vehicle portion. But however, aside from that, as a part of some of our vehicle purchase incentive programs like the Clean Cars for All and Financing Assistance Program, we do offer charge cards, kind of recognizing the fact that not everybody owns their own home and has access to charging where they live or work. So we do offer the charge cards. And then I believe as a part of the financing assistance program, folks have the option of getting an incentive for a portable charger. Again, trying to get at that issue of, folks not, having the ability to get charging installed where they live. So, but thank you for your comments.
And then can we have someone from staff speak to the school bus portion of Janet's question as well?
Sure. I'm Andrea Morgan, and I'm the lead for school bus programs here at CARB. So we totally agree with you that transitioning school buses to zero emission is a big priority, and the state as a whole agrees with that priority. So we actually opened a program last year that we funded about 300 conversions of old or replacements of old diesel buses with new zero emission buses. And we have a program that's open right now for school districts to apply to replace their old buses with zero emission. Additionally, and we'll probably hit on this a little bit later in the presentation tonight, that there's another $375 million that was approved in this year's budget that will go to supporting school bus replacement projects. So we're very excited about those opportunities and doing a lot of outreach to school districts to encourage them to apply as we're really working to transition the school bus fleet to zero emission.
Thanks, Andrea and Graciela.
All right, Bill Deeds, you're being unmuted. Make sure to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, my name is Bill Dedis, and I run a company called Cutting Edge Productions. And we're a TV studio based here in the Los Angeles area. We also operate diesel trucks as part of running our business. I'm sorry. Sorry for someone was calling me just at that wrong moment. And I have a question about, I understand that the new standard will be having to have the vehicles smogged twice a year. I just can't see how that's even feasible with the amount of diesel trucks in California, the fourth largest economy in the world.
Hey, okay. Bill, sorry, was that the end of your question? Just double checking.
I have more, but that's fine for now.
Okay, yeah, so if we can quickly have someone answer that from the HD team. However, we do have a heavy duty section, I think, where we can talk more about that perhaps. Although, I don't know, heavy duty staff, enlighten me if that's within the scope of this presentation or if that would be for a different team.
Hi there, this is Matt Williams. I'm the lead staff for the Heavy Duty Investment Strategy and HFIP. That would be a specific regulatory question. This is an incentives meeting, but Bill, we can try to connect with you offline to get you in touch with the proper regulatory team. But I don't believe that we have staff on who are ready to talk or who are qualified to talk about the heavy duty regulations.
Got it. Okay. Well, then just a parting comment then would be that I attended, there was a very large trucking convention at the Anaheim Convention Center about 2 months ago. And I work in the trade show business, and it was a rather large size convention, trade show, I should say. And I got to tell you, there were no realistic options whatsoever at all. Like, you can't go buy one today. And some of the prototypes they were showing were just completely not feasible. Like, for example, one of them, the bottom of the truck, the transmission portion of it was like 4 inches off the ground. That's not enough clearance to get out of your first driveway, let alone be making deliveries all day. I think I understand and I appreciate also the woman from Fresno about her concern about air quality in California. But, you know, last I checked, we have something called gravity and reality on this planet, and the time frame for all this stuff to happen is just not realistic. The manufacturers can't come up with a product, let alone manufacture it fast enough to replace every diesel truck in the fourth largest economy in the world.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate your perspective. Like Matt said earlier, right now, the people we have on here are more geared towards incentives programs around heavy duty trucks. But if you don't mind dropping your contact info in the chat to hosts and panelists, we'll make sure to connect with you and get the right staff connected to you so that you know, they can hear your comments and kind of start talking solutions with you as well. But we definitely appreciate you being here and sharing that perspective.
Very well, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
George Nagles, you're being unmuted. Please remember to state your name and affiliation. Oh, oops, sorry.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm George Nagels from Balance to Thrive in Ventura, California. I'm very excited about the semi-trucks being offered by Nikola and also Tesla and others. But my question is, who do you envision to be the ideal owners of the electric, plug-in hybrid electric, charging and battery storage equipment, as well as low carbon fuel vans, if those are included? Who are the entities that can receive this funding and who are the entities that cannot, please? For example, I can imagine cooperatives, corporations, nonprofit corporations. I don't know if individuals are okay or like what legal forms of entity can receive these funds. Make sense?
Hi, George. Thank you for your comment. So I can comment on the light duty purchase incentive program. So those programs are typically available for individuals. However, we do, through our clean vehicle rebate project, we do provide incentives for fleets. And then I believe for our mobility projects, I believe local governments, Violet, feel free to jump in if I'm wrong. But the mobility projects are open to more like local community groups and local governments to apply for funding. And then I'll tee it up to the heavy duty team to discuss their incentives and who's eligible for those.
On the heavy duty side, we also have a portfolio of incentives that are designed to tackle specific issues. For example, we have HVIP, which we will be talking about a bit later. HVIP is our commercial zero emission vehicle on-road incentive program that is available to fleets of all sizes and types, including government and public fleets, private fleets, and nonprofits of all sizes. We also have our CORE, or Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project, which works very similarly to HVIP and is available to all kinds of different fleets. More information will be discussed later in the presentation, and we'll also be providing information on the websites for those. But if you want to get a head start now, for the heavy duty side, that's californiahvip.org and californiacore.org.
Yeah, and I'll just add that as far as the clean mobility options and planning capacity building, those programs are generally available for local governments, like Grace said, as well as tribal governments, community-based organizations, and partnering with a variety of other types of community representatives, nonprofits, and school districts, as well as lead applicants.
Bill McGavern, you're being unmuted. Please remember to, go.
Yeah, I think I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thanks a lot. Bill McGavern with the Coalition for Clean Air. I'm based in Sacramento, and just a few comments on the light duty sides. First of all, we strongly support proposed $20 million allocation to the e-bike project for low and moderate income people. E-bikes can be an excellent way to make short and medium-sized trips without needing a car. And we're very much looking forward to the launch of the project. We think demand will probably be very high, and so that warrants this additional allocation of funds. Secondly, we agree that zero emission motorcycles should be eligible in Clean Cars for All and for financing. If someone is going to choose to buy a zero emission motorcycle instead of a zero emission car, that might be a lower cost option and could help get some of these much cleaner motorcycles on our roads, hopefully replacing some of the really dirty gasoline powered ones we have. And thirdly, we're strong supporters of Clean Cars for All and want to make sure that both the Air District programs and the statewide program are adequately funded. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Paul Haugen, you are being unmuted. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Paul Haugen. I'm just representing myself and maybe seniors, if I were able to. I wanted to just touch base on the points that you were making about the mobility projects and capacity building and the constraints or restraints that you face from some of the state regulations. Particularly, it sounds like in working with community-based organizations. It sounds like there's a lot of, I guess, bureaucracy involved for those organizations to prove who they are and that they're worthy for the money to get funding in general. I don't know what kind of relationship CARB has with state lawmakers or whoever would be the entities that would deal with this specific issue, but it seems like a really a huge block in for you in accomplishing what seems to be a rather large portion of the picture here. I wondered also if these restrictions by the state, do they just apply to community-based organizations or local governments as well? What's the scope of, I don't know if that's too much to go through at this time, but it seems like if in the end, it just might maybe be a better way to reach your goal of reaching as many people as you can if these restrictions from the state are as significant as they sound, to me anyway. Thank you. I'm not sure if that's a question or just a comment.
Thanks, Paul, for your questions and comments. Typically when we, for most of our programs, we do, select a third-party administrator, which is like a nonprofit or local government. But some of the constraints have to do with the subcontractors. And so I know there is a bill that's making its way around this legislative session that's going to kind of help alleviate and would allow CARB to not only advance pay our grantees, but the sub-grantees as well. So it's a step in the right direction. And, we do engage with and coordinate with the legislature on issues such as these. And so there is movement and we're hoping, to continue to work with the legislator to help alleviate some of these constraints and roadblocks.
Thank you.
Megan Shumway, you're being unmuted. Please remember to state your name and affiliate. Sorry, you disappeared for a second. Yeah, feel free to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, I'm Megan Shumway. I work with the Sacramento Climate Coalition's subcommittee on getting schools to declare climate emergencies and take actions. We're a small group and I don't know if we have the bandwidth to be intermediaries, but I'm, hoping there's some way for us to connect schools with the proper people for electric school buses, as well as for other fleet vehicles they might want to have, and getting the infrastructure they need for all that. I don't know if there's some way we can do that without being the one who is the actual, deliverer of the goods, so to speak. I don't know. It's not in our bandwidth to be intensively involved in getting things done for them. It's just to get them to access programs that we know about. And maybe there's a list of names and phone numbers that they would call to get started on their applications. I'm wondering if you have that. I guess
Thank-
that's my question.
Thanks for your question, Megan. Yeah, we can certainly connect you with, like folks from our Clean Mobility in Schools program, and then some of our other heavy duty programs focused on school buses. I don't know that we have a comprehensive contact list, but we can certainly follow up with you and provide you with one.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
Great. Thanks, Megan.
I was just going to add that we also have technical assistance, a team of technical assistants for our current RFA that is identified on our website. I think we could probably drop the link to that RFA in there that has that information, if that would be helpful.
Brody Wilburn, you're being unmuted. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Brody. Are you with us? If you are, we can't currently hear you. Brody? All right, Brody, looks like there might be some technical issues, so we'll come back to you.
Bill Dedez, you're being unmuted. Make sure to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, I spoke earlier and it said to leave my contact info in the chat, but the chat is disabled.
Yeah, Bill, I'm so sorry about that. I just dropped a message to everyone in the chat. So our amazing staff on the back end, they actually just sent me your email so we can follow up with you. I also dropped another link in the chat for you that I think is where you probably want to be. So there's a link in the chat for you and others where you can drop comments related to the advanced clean fleece regulation. So you're welcome to drop your public comments there, and that'll get to the right staff. So again, we can follow up with you. Staff on the back end, they sent us your email, so we'll send you that information by email as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, shall we try Brody again?
Better, guys?
Hey, we hear you now.
Oh, outstanding. I'm happy to hear that. Sorry, we were having some audio issues. Brody Wilborn with Connected Living Transportation Dignity Health Representative for a nonprofit transportation in Redding, California. Hey, I was curious, can you guys post in chat for us the bills that you are watching and or expecting to be coming around in this next legislative round for the medium and light duty vehicle usage for the zero emission goals?
Do we have staff on that has that information to drop in the chat? If not, maybe we can work in the background and try to get that to you before this meeting ends, Brody. If not, maybe we can also email you.
That would be great, even if it's just posted in the chat for more of the bills that are pertinent to the clean mobility and the school session section of the conversation on that. I'd just love to know what bills I could be reading up on or looking into for our organization as it pertains to some of the more remote transit groups and maybe the smaller and light duty transit groups.
All right, thanks, Brody. So looks like we might need to refer you to some other members in the legislative office, but we'll follow up with you in the background.
I very much appreciate that, guys. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for hosting this this evening.
Thank you for being here. All right, not seeing any more callers or hands raised. So, oh, nope, I spoke too soon. Georgia, can you go ahead and call on our next raised hands?
Oh, sure. Richard Parks, you're being unmuted. Remember to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, I'm Richard Parks with Redeemer Community Partnership in South Central Los Angeles. I wanted to respond to a couple of the questions that staff have raised, beginning with what are the criteria that should be used to identify and/or prioritize communities, CBOs, and local leaders. I think it's really critical that CARB is looking for community-based organizations with a track record of successful organizing, a demonstrated commitment to social, environmental, and economic justice, and a demonstrated history of leadership and trust within the communities that they serve. Secondly, I think we need to continue or even increase the priority, the highest, funding priority on those communities that bear the greatest burdens of air pollution, environmental health impacts, climate change, and economic hardship. Secondly, I wanted to respond to the question about what other outreach efforts are needed. In our experience of helping residents over the last several years to qualify for rebates and incentives and actually to make a purchase of their first electric vehicle, we think it's important that we create a framework for intensive public education and case management, again, by trusted community-based organizations. Public education and case management are essential for helping disadvantaged community residents access clean mobility options. A website is just simply not enough. There are so many barriers for residents to overcome, including, for example, a lack of access to technology, a lack of familiarity with the technology of electric vehicles and e-bikes and charging, predatory car dealers. I think in our experience, we're successful in getting residents into electric vehicles only when we walk through this process with them step by step. So again, intensive public education and case management. Secondly, I would just encourage placing greater emphasis on the entire suite of clean mobility programs aimed at disadvantaged communities, especially e-bikes. Our South Central LA community bikes to work and to school at a rate that's 3 times higher than Los Angeles County overall. While EV ownership is really out of reach for many residents, e-bikes are so much more affordable. And we don't want to simply electrify congestion. E-bikes can reduce traffic congestion and gridlock in our communities. Finally, I just would encourage you to make sure that community-based organizations are really adequately compensated for this work. To really do this successfully, to do the case management and the public education, it's a lot of work. It's not just a matter of disseminating information. It's really about relationships. It's about lots of one-on-one meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We definitely appreciate those comments and perspective.
Paul Hagen, you're being unmuted.
Thank you again. Yeah, the last person brought up some concerns and an idea for me, so thank you for that. You know, this is really a health issue also for everybody, and I'm wondering, just thinking outside of the box a little bit here with regard to outreach to communities. There already, of course, is maybe a better or a significantly more experienced group of people, case managers and health workers who are a part of these communities, and maybe some of the other organizations that serve the communities for other resources and help other than health in general, medical health. So I just want to put that out there, that might be a resource to tap into, that part of the workforce that already exists be educated on this health issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I think we have time for one more comment before we have our quick 5-minute break and then move on to our next topic. But just want to thank everyone so far for your participation. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate that we're uplifting our community members' voices and, you know, giving them that space in this meeting. So with that, let's take one more comment and then we'll take our break.
Janet Dietz Kame, you're being unmuted. Oh.
Hey, Janet, if you're on, we can't hear you quite yet.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
The previous speaker pointed out health issues, and I'm very in favor of electric bikes. I think that's grand, but there are times when this air is not safe for people who are on bikes, and that's a concern for me because I have asthma, and there are a lot of times, especially during the summer, where I cannot be out in the ozone. I cannot breathe in the ozone. And there are times during the winter when we have our inversion that I cannot be out because of the particulates in the air. And there are thousands and thousands of us with asthma. And I just need to share my concern that, yes, the electric bikes are wonderful, but the people using them have to be aware through using the monitoring systems and that are available through the district and through Purple Air, so they can protect themselves from the periods of time when the air is not safe to breathe. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate that perspective. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There are all types of different communities who, you know, need different solutions. So e-bikes might be a good solution for some communities and not others. So that's why we're here offering a wide variety of different incentive programs, but I really appreciate that. So with that, let's go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break. So let's go to the next slide, Stephanie, and post our 5-minute break. We'll return at 6:05. So go ahead, take care of your needs. And when you get back, we'll talk about the heavy duty investment program updates. Thank you again so much for all of your input so far. We really appreciate it. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back from the 5-minute break. So we will start now on our next topic, and that's HVIP, ISEF, and CORE Heavy Duty Investment Program updates. So I will invite Matt to the floor for this topic.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So the fiscal year 2023-24 budget approved by the legislature and the governor included $80 million from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and $28.6 million from the Air Quality Improvement Program. The $80 million was designated specifically for zero-emission drayage trucks funded through HVIP, which we'll discuss momentarily. And the Air Quality Improvement Program appropriation is programmed at CARB's discretion, and we are proposing dividing that equally between ISEF and CORE, which we will also discuss shortly. This year, the legislature also approved $375 million in funding for zero-emission school buses and supporting infrastructure. But note that this is part of the $1.125 billion of school bus funding that was included in last year's budget and approved in last year's funding plan. As part of the legislature's prudent fiscal approach to the 2023 budget, the $1.125 billion appropriation was reduced to $375 million, though the legislator indicates that they intend to keep the original $1.125 billion program whole by appropriating $375 million in the next 2 fiscal years. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So as HVIP is our commercial on-road incentive program for zero-emission heavy-duty vehicles. The purpose of HVIP is to reduce the purchase price of zero-emission technologies by buying down the upfront cost. That's cash in the hood. It works by working with dealers to implement a incentive that is included in the purchase price. So when a purchaser purchases an HVIP eligible vehicle, the price they pay already includes the incentive. We thereby reduce the upfront burden for purchasers to participate. We have an ongoing commitment to support priority populations by implementing community-driven clean transportation and equitable investments. This includes higher incentives for vehicles deployed in disadvantaged communities and additional ways that we can make sure that we're getting vehicles into the hands of fleets that are undercapitalized and need incentives the most. HVIP is available statewide. We have set-asides that ensure funding availability for priority fleet types and vocations, such as public transit agencies and school buses. And we have voucher enhancements that increase the incentive levels for priority fleets and vocations, such as vehicles domiciled in disadvantaged communities and small fleets and public fleets. So far, we've issued over 11,400 vouchers totaling $844 million, with over 60% of vehicles deployed in priority communities. Next slide. As HVIP enters its 13th year, the project continues to adapt to changing needs. This year, the project strengthens its focus on supporting underserved fleets and priority vehicle types, as well as preparing the state for upcoming regulatory deadlines. Approved by the board in the fiscal year 2022-23 funding plan, that's last year, to promote more equitable investments, private fleets with more than 50 medium and heavy-duty vehicles would no longer be eligible for HVIP beginning January 1st, 2024. However, given expected demand ahead of advanced clean fleets regulatory requirements and other measures we have in place designed to ensure fund availability for small fleets, staff proposes to delay the eligibility change to January 1st, 2025. We would maintain other mechanisms to ensure fund availability for small fleets, as well as exemptions for public agencies, California Native American tribal governments, and nonprofits. To strengthen support for small fleets, staff proposes moving $50 million from HVIP standard to the Innovative Small E-Fleets, or ISEF, pilot, which we'll discuss shortly. ISEF is a set-aside within HVIP entirely focused on helping small businesses access zero-emission trucks through elevated purchase incentives and innovative access solutions like truck as a service and expanded leasing and rental opportunities. Additionally, we would align HVIP small fleet definition with that of ISEF and match standard purchase incentives. This would result in HVIP offering double the base voucher amount to fleets with fewer than 20 medium and heavy-duty vehicles and less than $15 million in annual revenue. The change in small fleet definition would apply in all uses, including expanded stacking eligibility and the disadvantaged community voucher modifier. We also propose funding all standard purchases formerly made through ISEF through HVIP standard instead, allowing ISEF to focus on innovative solutions for small fleets. Additional ISEF changes will be discussed a little later. Transitioning drayage trucks to zero emission remains an important priority to support existing executive orders and to provide benefits in California's priority population communities. Similarly, refuse trucks are present in all communities statewide, but their impacts are felt particularly strongly by priority populations located near waste transfer stations who are burdened by multiple pollution sources. To maintain momentum in these areas, staff proposes to extend a 25% voucher enhancement for zero emission drayage and refuse trucks until December 31st, 2024. A manufacturer rolling soft cap was established in 2020 to improve HVIP funding availability and encourage faster vehicle delivery. To reduce the administrative burden and better meet these goals, staff proposes eliminating the manufacturer soft cap in favor of ad hoc review of manufacturer performance with vehicle delivery. Staff will work with manufacturers through the public work group process to determine metrics for review, as well as potential actions CARB can take to encourage faster delivery. CARB has multiple funding programs that are designed. Oh, sorry, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. CARB has multiple funding programs that are designed to empower under-resourced communities across California to better understand and overcome mobility obstacles through needs assessments and community-driven incentivized deployments of zero-emission vehicles. With limited funding and high demand, where allowed by applicable law, staff proposes reducing fiscal strain on Clean Mobility Options, or CMO, Clean Mobility in Schools, and the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project by using HVIP to cover costs for HVIP eligible vehicles in those projects. Next year, staff will launch $375 million in grants for local educational agency school bus replacement grants. This is anticipated to be the first year of a 3-year program totaling $1.125 billion. While the legislature indicated that the funding should be prioritized for zero emissions school buses, they did provide an option to allow school districts to purchase cleaner combustion technologies if the school districts could demonstrate substantial barriers to adopting zero emission school buses. Given the considerable demand for zero emission school buses and oversubscription of all recent funding programs for zero emission school buses, staff proposed to only provide funding for zero emission school buses next year to ensure that funding is available as quickly as possible. Over the course of the next year, staff will work with stakeholders to develop criteria to evaluate the unique challenges faced by some school districts and requirements for low emission renewable fueled school bus replacement grants, with the potential for such grants in future years if needed. Finally, to further support for small fleets in the transition to zero emission, in addition to the increased purchase incentives and innovative solutions available now and proposed for this fiscal year, staff will begin exploring additional mechanisms for small fleet assistance to address challenges around borrowing costs, residual value, and insurance. Now I will hand it off to my colleague Olivia to talk about the innovative small e-fleet pilot and changes proposed for this year.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Lane. I'm the CARB lead on the Innovative Small E-Fleet Program, or ISEF. So Matt already talked a little bit about what ISEF was, but it was created to increase vouchers for small fleets and independent owner operators to help overcome barriers to ZEV market entry and pilot innovative mechanisms. And when we reference innovative mechanisms, we're talking about things like all-inclusive leases, rentals, truck as a service, things beyond just a standard purchase of a vehicle. So for the program, eligible participants include companies with 20 or fewer trucks operating in California that make less than $15 million in annual revenue. Nonprofits are exempt from this revenue requirements. So ISEF opens for the second year of voucher requests at the end of the month on August 30th. If you have any questions about the opening date or how to participate, you can reach out to me. So while ISEF is opening at the end of the month, we are proposing changes for next year that will not affect these vouchers. So for next year, and as Matt already mentioned, we propose that funding is allocated solely towards projects that explore innovative mechanisms. Last year, we did allow for standard purchases, and we'll allow for that again in August, on August 30th. So the proposed changes would increase the diversity of projects that CARB has funded and will allow staff to understand different use cases and how these vehicles can be utilized by small fleets in California. So these small fleets would still receive increased vouchers for just a standard purchase. This would just happen through standard HVIP and not the ISEF set aside. Staff is also considering expanding ISF eligible vehicles to include certain buses for transporting people. So that might include small businesses such as daycares and retirement homes. Currently, we just allow for trucks to be funded through ISF. And then lastly, for the funding allocation, staff is recommending a preliminary 14.3 million from the Air Quality Improvement Program, or AQIP, and the board will make a final decision on this allocation during the funding plans board hearing later this year. That concludes my slide. I'll hand it on to our next presenter.
Thank you very much, Olivia. My name is Eric Brown. Welcome to today's Clean Off-Road Voucher Incentive Program, or CORE portion of the work group. I'm one of the staff implementing the CORE program. Before we get started, a little information on the work group logistics. This presentation is not terribly long. I will run through a couple slides and we can answer. And at the end of CORE presentation, we'll have time to ask questions about all the heavy duty programs. I also want to mention that this meeting is about program updates for the heavy duty CORE project in 2024. We're not here to discuss CORE vouchers, current contingency lists, or professional landscaping vouchers. If you have questions or comments about those topics or other topics we are not discussing in the following slides, please contact myself outside of this meeting or the project lead, Todd Sterling. Next slide, please. Now a little overview of CORE. Since CORE started, the program has been a first come, first served program. CORE is intended to accelerate the deployment of advanced technology in the off-road sector, basically akin to the HVIP program for on-road, by providing a streamlined way for fleets to access funding, which will help offset the incremental cost of such technology. CORE targets commercially ready products which have not yet achieved a significant market foothold. This program allows for stacking, which means you can use funding from this program and other incentive programs, but still need to follow the incentive rules for each of the two programs you're obtaining money from. Also, CORE does not require scrappage. CORE does not require scrappage one of your current piece of equipment. There are also enhancements for infrastructure, small business, and operations in disadvantaged communities. Next slide, please. So CORE will have limited funding next year, approximately $14 million. At this time, we're thinking to only offer CORE vouchers to small businesses. Some equipment categories such as railroads, cargo handling equipment, and commercial harbor craft, which CORE has offered up to $1 million per voucher, would not be eligible for CORE funded vouchers in 2024. These are high cost vouchers and the equipment is not typical of small business equipment types. Also, terminal tractors, which have been a huge success in past CORE voucher offerings, may also be removed as this is becoming a mature zero emission technology. Also removing lead acid batteries from the CORE catalog, it may be time to move on from lead acid batteries completely. And overall, we'll be continuing to look at voucher offerings to provide enough funding to entice small businesses, but stretch the low funding for next year. I did want to note that we will be offering several public workshops over the next year to receive public input to help determine the direction of CORE in 2024. And with that, that's the end of my presentation.
Oh, where am I? Here I am. Thank you so much, Eric. Really appreciate that. Thank you to Olivia and Matt as well. So now we'll open it up for comments and questions. And again, just want to thank everyone for uplifting the community voices in this space. And let's get started and start chatting. So I'll hand it off to Georgie to call on hands.
Hi, everyone. If you'd like to make a comment or question, please use the raise hand option if you're in Zoom online under the Zoom navigation bar under the participants tab. For those on the mobile application using Zoom, please click on the raise hand option in the More tab. And for those who are participating by telephone, please make sure to press #2 and we will call on you accordingly. I'm seeing a lot of new hands, so we're going to call on Maya Inigo Anderson. You're being unmuted. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Maya Inigo Anderson again with Communities for a Better Environment. I'm sorry that there's a little background noise. I'm watching our daughter. So I just want to just reemphasize the importance of focusing on funding for small fleets. I worked some years ago with the service organization that was doing outreach to LA and Long Beach port drivers and small fleet operators. And when I say small fleets, and as far as who we were working with, there were a lot of fleet owners who only owned 1 or 2 vehicles. And a lot of them were first generation immigrants. A lot of them didn't have a lot of capital. So these very small fleet owners certainly would be dependent on assistance from the state to really be able to successfully participate in these programs. So I'm sure, you're already aware of this, but I just want to reemphasize the importance of really prioritizing small fleet owners and also prioritizing trucks over smaller vehicles. And just prioritizing the most polluting vehicles.
Thank you, Maya.
Kristen Kessler, you're being unmuted. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, I'm just a concerned citizen. I was wondering if Mr. Brown can put his contact info in the chat. I did have a question about the landscaping portion of CORE, and I know you're not talking about it tonight, so thank you.
No problem. I don't think I can drop in chat, but I'll give my email right now. It's actually really easy. It's eric.brown@arb.ca.gov. So that's actually how you can really get a hold of just about anybody at CARB. It's just our name with a, I'm sorry, I should turn my microphone, just our name with a dot in between the name at ARB. There you go.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bill McGavern, you're being unmuted.
Thanks. Bill McGavern with the Coalition for Clean Air in Sacramento. I agree with the comments that Maya made about prioritizing the smaller fleets, which is also included in the budget bill, AB 102, which also calls for benefiting disadvantaged communities and small businesses. And compared to large fleets, small fleets will encounter greater challenges while transitioning their trucks to zero emissions because they have less access to capital and less staff capacity and technical resources to apply for the grants, and fewer resources and vehicles to spare if they encounter issues with the new technology. So we agree with the staff proposal to support smaller fleets. And we also think that ISIF is deserving of more funding. I wish there were more that you had, but given the limited resources, agree with your proposal. And also think it's a good idea to add certain kinds of buses because the passengers in those buses are being exposed to diesel exhaust if they're using diesel buses. So that is a good reason to prioritize helping them to convert to zero emission. And one additional comment on CORE, we definitely agree that it's time to move on from lead acid batteries and remove those from the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
George Nogles, you're being unmuted.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any special permitting, oversight, safety, insurance, or other requirements to address the challenge of difficult to extinguish battery fires on these vehicles? And can you please, I apologize because there's another extreme heat thing going on and I'm between Zooms. So I actually missed the most important presentation of your event here. There was a woman that spoke before Eric. I don't know if you have a link you can put in the chat so I can follow up as quickly as possible with that key information. Thank you.
George, was that information on ISEF that you wanted?
Can you spell that, please?
Innovative small e-fleets. Is that what you're referring to? I believe Olivia spoke before.
Yes, can you post the link for more information relevant to small businesses like mine? You know, I have a small business. I am very thankful for the efficient vehicles that we're currently using, but we want to get to 100% carbon neutral, and I'm hoping that this grant might help us.
Certainly, I'll drop some information in the chat.
Thank you, Olivia.
Okay, thanks.
And regarding the first part of your question about safety, permitting, oversight, battery safety, that is not within the scope of the California Air Resources Board. However, there are state agencies in charge of vehicle and federal agencies, mostly who are in charge of vehicle safety.
Thanks, team, for those answers.
Ashley McClure Moore, you're being unmuted. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, yeah, Ashley McClure. I'm a primary care physician in the East Bay area and a organizer with Climate Health Now. And I'm my comments are coming directly from a letter out of the Charge Ahead Coalition, and the Climate Health Now is part of the Invest in Clean Air Coalition. And it's really about the process for engagement. And, you know, we've been kind of participating in these meetings, the evening workshops, and appreciate the opportunity to do so. And I think it would be really helpful to learn kind of if the staff could provide explanations of how the public input that is being received will be incorporated into the process while drafting the funding plan, and if any decisions are made or changed because of the input that's received in these meetings, to feel like you know, it's impactful for everybody to be participating and sharing. And the other point really is about kind of directly intentional outreach to communities that, you know, if this, another thing we would advocate for is more need-based funding instead of first come, first serve, for lots of the kind of procedural obstacles that people who need funding the most, you know, are probably not ready on their, you know, computers to apply for funding. So if funding could be more need-based, and then the kind of outreach plan for getting that need-based funding to communities that need it the most, it would be really valuable to hear how CARB is adjusting the outreach process based on this feedback that I think many people have reiterated, of wanting to kind of, you know, kind of like an affirmative action type of outreach plan to get the funding to the people who need it the most. So that's what we would say, and that's it. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for your comments. So to answer the first part of your question, which was how the feedback from CARB's engagement on the funding plan, how that makes its way into the funding plan or how it helps shape it, definitely want to reiterate that all of the comments and feedback provided, it is going into shaping that funding plan. We actually plan to release a draft funding plan on the 21st of August, and that will be about 10 days prior to our final funding plan workshop that will be on August 31st. And so it won't be in the draft funding plan, but in the proposed funding plan, which will be released later. I want to say it'll go out for a 30-day public comment review in October. That should include a summary table similar to last year about that will include a summary table that shows the different comments that we received, as well as how they were incorporated into the funding plan. So if you take a look at past funding plans, that's kind of the way that we did it in order to sort of close that loop on engagement and how it went into the plan. So that is what I can tell you today. And then for the other parts of your question, I can pass it to my teammates. But before I go there, I do want to say that thank you very much to the CAC for that comment letter. We did receive it, and staff is currently reviewing and discussing internally. And we have actually met with the CAC and let them know that we'll be discussing with them in the future. So we're not quite ready to respond to comments in that particular letter now, but we are definitely discussing it internally.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And any other staff want to comment on other topics like need-based funding, intentional outreach? Or I guess I could talk about outreach, but Grace.
Yeah, just specifically on the needs-based approach for the programs. So speaking for the light duty vehicle purchase incentive programs like Clean Cars for All and the financing assistance program. So we are beginning to shift away from the first come, first serve to a more needs-based approach. And we're developing that as a part of the joint statewide Clean Cars for All program and financing assistance program. So we're starting that shift. I believe, we've received similar comments for some of the mobility projects, and that's something that we're evaluating because I know some of those programs are first come, first serve as well. But we are beginning that shift. But I want to thank you for your comments. I don't know if Violet, if you wanted to add anything additional on the mobility side before we hand it off to heavy duty.
Sorry, I was trying to talk, but I was muted. Yeah, I'll just second exactly what you just said, Grace, and that we are looking at a variety of ways that we can shift from, a more needs-based approach. And I think that's more for discussion once on the clean mobility side, when we have implementation work groups following the board approval of the funding split. I'd appreciate all the feedback regarding that particular detail. It's really important that we think of better ways and creative ways to ensure those that are the communities that most need these funds are getting them.
Great, thanks, Violet.
And okay, so it looks like heavy duty doesn't have anything more to add. And then finally, just want to say I definitely appreciate your comment on having intentional outreach. That was absolutely a priority going into this funding plan process. So we've been tapping into various existing networks of environmental justice groups across California. For example, the Access Clean California Outreach Partner Network. We've met with them during their monthly meetings. These last 2 monthly meetings, we were there and talking about the funding plan. We actually have a list of over 250 different environmental justice organizations that, we've either organically met with or, as we meet more groups, we continue to add to that list. Those are folks that we've been reaching out to, inviting, encouraging them to meet with us one-on-one or take community surveys or, come to these meetings to share their feedback. Additionally, we also tap into our Environmental Justice Advisory Committee here at CARB. So they have their network of folks that we also tap into and reach out to. And of course, there's the AB 617 community steering committees that we have recently been touching base with and letting them know about this funding plan process. So we absolutely recognize that there's always more that we can do. We recently started moving towards having staff act as geographic representatives across the state of California. So we have particular staff assigned to different regions, and moving towards the future, we're going to have those staff be more of boots on the ground outreach partners and really getting to know their areas, attending in-person meetings. We've started that a bit already with some staff attending EJ community meetings in Santa Ana, or larger events like the Southern California Association of Governments regional meeting, and networking with folks there, letting them know about this process. And we hope to continue that multi-pronged approach. These community meetings, community surveys, reaching out to folks for one-on-ones, and boots on the ground, meeting people where they are. So we definitely appreciate that comment of, having that intentional outreach. That is what we're trying to strive for, but we're always happy to hear about, more strategies or meet more groups that we haven't met with before, that typically haven't been engaged with. All right, so I think we can go on to our next hand.
Maya Inigo Anderson, you're being unmuted.
Yes, you have to. Hi, Maya Inigo Anderson again with Communities for a Better Environment. I just want to express my gratitude for staff taking steps towards needs-based programs and also doing really intensive and intentional outreach. So that's it for now.
Thanks, Maya. We appreciate it. All right, not seeing any hands currently, so maybe we can move on to just kind of our open discussion. So on the next slide, you'll see just some open-ended questions. These are really just meant to get at general community member needs. We want to hear about, your priorities, and, we've continued to hear about these priorities, and you've highlighted them throughout these past couple monthly community meetings, but we want to always leave those open questions there for you, give you an opportunity to express your feedback to us. And, like I mentioned earlier, we will be summarizing your feedback and showing you exactly how we applied it in the funding plan when the proposed funding plan comes out, hopefully in October. So please know that everything that you've talked to us about, whether you've responded to the community survey, responded during these open discussions in the community engagement evening meetings, please know that you are being listened to, and all of those comments are going into the funding plan. So really appreciate that.
Brody Wilburn, you're being unmuted.
Hey, Brody, we can't quite hear you yet, but I see that you've unmuted. Brody, can you hear us? If you can, we cannot hear you yet. So you might be having a couple of technical difficulties, maybe.
How about now?
Okay.
Better?
Yep, there you go.
Sorry, I keep having to switch computers for this because my
No.
laptop died.
No worries.
Brody Wilborn, Dignity Health Connected Living. For everybody on this, I'm sure we probably all got sort of the same issue as we come and go in the evening meeting. Is there a chance you guys can just post each speaker and the related programs? Doesn't have to be the links, but just the programs that they spoke on, so we can kind of keep track in our notes who we would like to reach out to departmentally with regards to your presentation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. So, would you like that in the chat, or is this like an email follow-up that you would like?
The chat would be perfect. I'm sure with everybody else following, we can all do our copy paste for who we want on that end of it. I know we all probably get enough emails as it is that that will help, but it would get lost in the shuffle versus being in the chat box for all of us to see on there.
Sounds good. So staff, if you don't mind dropping your name, email, and the program that you oversee, please drop that in the chat to everyone. Make sure it's not just a host. But Brody, I'm gonna put mine in there first, and Stephanie's, because Stephanie and I are the leads for the funding plan this year. And so we can connect you to the entire network of staff members. So it might be easier just to have ours there first. And Stephanie.
I very much
Sorry,
appreciate
I didn't
it,
mean
Diane.
to
Thank you so
drop that
much.
in. Sorry, Diane, I accidentally dropped in.
No, it's
myself
okay.
First, and then I didn't actually create my email, so I'll redo it.
It's okay.
And it looks like I dropped the ISEF information just to the host and panelists, so I'll be dropping that in as well. Someone asked for the links to the webpage earlier, so I'll add that as well with mine.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for your efforts on this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Brody. Good call. Yeah, there are so many people that work on the funding plan. So I think that's why we typically don't list everyone's name, just because it could be overwhelming. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. We'll make sure to drop all our contact info in the chat. But if that seems overwhelming, or if it's too many staff members to keep track of, you can always contact me or Stephanie Parent, and we'll point you to the right folks.
Noted and very much appreciated.
You got it. Oh, and before I forget, we also have a general email, and that's clean transportation. Actually, Stephanie, can you remind me what it is? I don't want to say it incorrectly. Steph, I think you're muted.
Sorry, my apologies. I was actually looking for it myself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Put you on the spot.
That's okay.
It's on the last slide of the deck.
Yeah, I was about to say it's actually on the last slide.
Yes. Are we almost at the last one there? So I'll just go there for now. So it's clean transportation incentives at arb.ca.gov. Oops, sorry. And I can probably just put that in the chat real quick, and then I'll go back to the slide we were on.
Yeah, sorry, I should have thought about just going to the last slide. I feel like when we're in these meetings, I feel like I'm on high adrenaline, so I can't always, well, that doesn't make sense. You would think I'd think faster, but not always the case. Sometimes my brain gets a little scrambled, so sorry, everyone.
That happens to me too, Diane. All right, I'll mute myself now.
Thanks, Dev. Appreciate it. All right, any other questions? Again, we're in open discussion, so we're happy to discuss any and all of your clean transportation needs, suggestions, questions, you know, just generally what you really want to see in your communities, biggest barriers you might have. All right, so I'm not seeing any more hands. Oh, never mind, we have another hand. Dorji, can you go ahead and call on the next one?
George Nagales, your hand is, or you're being unmuted.
Thank you. It's actually Nagels like bagels, but no problem. I appreciate your question. What policy priorities would you like to see in your community? And I kind of need you to think outside the box with me a little bit. Here in Ventura, we have a big problem with our active transportation network bike paths, class 1 separated from the roads. Great idea, right? However, they are becoming an area where unhoused people congregate, and there are no public restrooms available to those people. And I am wondering, to what extent might it be possible to, for example, get funded a electric vehicle, one or more electric vehicles that can go get porta potties and take them to the wastewater treatment plant and get reprocessed, and basically solve this problem, aesthetic problem with our active transportation network, and do so in a carbon neutral way. Is that conceivable for a grant funding, or does that really seem like out of your scope?
I will say that that is totally possible if there were, so if there is a vehicle currently eligible for a program like HVIP, perhaps a class 4 truck or some other zero emission vehicle that would be doing that work of hauling around porta potties or anything else for that matter that would be eligible for HVIP. HVIP only cares about the purchase of the eligible or lease of the eligible vehicle. So it would just be up to a company or fleet or nonprofit to come to us or work through the standard process of HVIP, go to a dealer, purchase an eligible vehicle, and that incentive would be included.
Thank you.
So I guess another way of answering that is that the way that the vehicle is used does not change its eligibility for a program like HVIP.
And sorry, just to follow on. So the city of Ventura could apply for such a vehicle, correct?
Absolutely. So we would recommend that they go to californiahvip.org. On the website is a catalog of all of the eligible vehicle types within HVIP, and also information about how to participate in the program, how to work with a participating dealership to purchase or lease that eligible vehicle.
Thanks, Matt.
Paul Hagen, you're being unmuted.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you have any updates at all on infrastructure projects or the ones that specifically as they relate to people in cities and multi-unit apartment buildings. I know there was some mention of that earlier. But are there any updates on things that have started or in the pipeline to support people in apartments for charging? Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, that would fall under the realm of the Energy Commission, California Energy Commission. They provide funding for such projects. We could follow up. We could contact them and get an update and follow up with you offline.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, not seeing any more hands. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide and talk about next steps. All right, so here is our timeline. So what's going on next? What's our funding plan development schedule? So as I mentioned earlier, we really want to provide as many opportunities as we can for everyone to engage with us. So There was a slide earlier that shows the different ways that you can engage, whether it's taking a survey, talking to us during these meetings, which will continue through October, and meeting with us one-on-one. We currently have several one-on-ones scheduled with folks who have reached out with us from these meetings, or from taking the survey. Folks have requested that they meet with us one-on-one and kind of continuing these conversations and talking solutions, but in a more intimate setting, where we can kind of talk and really hash out those solutions. So in addition to that, you can always email us. We all dropped our contact info in the chat, as you saw. So you're always welcome to email us with any questions, comments, concerns. So we just want to make sure that we're giving you as many opportunities or methods to engage with CARB staff on this funding plan development. So as you see on the schedule here, we're going to continue to meet over the next several months during these evening community meetings, and they will be summarizing all the daytime themed work group meetings that occur during the day. Our second funding plan workshop is going to be held on August 31st, and you can all expect that draft funding plan to be released in late August, at least 10 days ahead of that second funding plan workshop. So we're aiming for August 21st. Again, in that draft funding plan, we won't yet have that summary of comments yet because we're still receiving comments as we go. We're still engaging with folks, but in the proposed funding plan that will be released in October, you will see that. You'll see all the feedback summarized and how we've incorporated it into the funding plan. Then the funding plan will be finalized in September, again, posted in October for that 30-day public review. And then finally, we plan to go to board in November. And that's not where it ends. This is just the first phase where we're developing the funding plan, but then we begin implementing our projects and what has been proposed in the funding plan starting in December. So we will be continuing this work. We'll be continuing that outreach and engaging with folks on, how to implement the projects themselves. So that's what you can expect across the next year and beyond as well. So with that, let's go to the next slide. And, I just want to thank everyone again for, as always, really excellent questions, excellent comments, suggestions, great discussion. I really appreciate you all giving us time this evening. And I just hope that everyone has a great evening. I will we've already dropped our emails, but just going to drop it in one more time. Another email that you can reach us at. And if you want to stay connected with us and stay on our listserv so that you hear about any of these meetings that come up in the future, I will also drop a link to that. And with that, just want to thank you all. Have a great night, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you.